So we'll call this regular meeting of the Board of Public Safety to order. So the record today is Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, in the City Hall Auditorium. And before we begin, could you please have the
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Moving into item 1, I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes of the regular meeting held October 7th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Okay. We heard Commissioner Williams and heard Commissioner Bender. Questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Item 2, I'll entertain a motion to accept Police Chief Baldwin's report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so I heard Commissioner Benedetto, seconded by Commissioner McLeod, who is removing and questions or questions on the report.
Chief, quick question. Underage drinking brand, I see there's 4 or 5 guys that's on that. I think the results, have we been, where we stand on that?
We're still working. We're still making attempts to discover these underage individuals, but with the COVID situation, it's kind of slowed down a little bit. But they're out there looking for people that might not be complying with the current statutes and laws.
Even with no gatherings.
They're still. I mean, they're still coming across people out there.
Yeah. I see it's a lot of time. And that grant's paid full?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions on the report? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, I'll entertain a motion to accept Fire Chief Tyler's report.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Benedetto, second by Commissioner Creswell. No. All right, so I'm sorry, it's all bouncing. Plexiglass. Was it Bingham? Thank you. So a motion made by Commissioner Benedetto, second by Commissioner Bingham. Questions on the report? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, I'll entertain a motion to accept Deputy Fire Chief Tripp's report.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto, second by Commissioner Gilroy. Questions on the report? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, I'll entertain a motion to accept the emergency management report.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Creswell. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, I want to take a motion to accept the fire marshal's report.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McElroy. Questions on this report? Bless you. No questions? On favor?
Aye.
Item 7, I want to take a motion to accept the EMS provider activity report.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto.
Second.
And second by Commissioner McLeod. Questions on the motion? Or in the report? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, I want to motion to consider business by volunteer fire funds.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Davis. Questions? Oh wait, I'm sorry, we're volunteer fire departments.
Yeah, well, this month we really look to Camp Mo for the trunk or treat they have there, and participate in that. Besides that, we've able to gain a couple of new members over the summer months and the last couple of months, last month here. So that's good for us. Besides that, I think we're pretty good.
Questions? Getting ready to sell those Christmas trees soon?
Yeah, hopefully.
I know, but I'm just looking at 2.1. All right,
We're solving no matter what.
I know, really. It's not like 100 people show up at the same time, right? Item 9, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee.
Second.
And second, Commissioner Calvert. All in favor? Opposed? Strike Chief Tally, anything this evening,
No, I mean, just with the COVID numbers rising, we're keeping to monitor our workforce. We did have some impact on our personnel. Luckily, nothing major, but it did result in members being quarantined and, having to cover them or isolated and having to keep them covered at work. But, the guys are doing great, maintaining, masks and social distancing and then still being able to conduct their duties and move forward. So, that's a strain, but the guys are stepping up and keep moving through that and just preparing to do that. We did get the official turn down letters on our 2 AFG grant applications this week. So sort of working through that. The radio system is something we need to address, sort of working through options to be able to start that project and get Fireground transmitted back, but still save some viability for future grant opportunities to try to, in the future, defer some of that cost to grant opportunities if possible. So, same thing with the SCBA and accountability. Just looking for ways to improve that grant application, but still let us incrementally make improvements so we can address those immediate needs. That's all I got.
Any questions for the Chief? Deputy Chief? Thank you. Chief Allen.
We're still, this morning we had interviews for positions within our department. We interviewed 50 applicants and or 50 individuals who are interested in our agency. We offered 5 conditional offers to 5 individuals. We also have 2 people that are currently in the process for our job. Right now, the basketball program is still going forward. We have a 12-game season that's going to be starting soon. They're accepting applications now. Tryouts will begin November 9th. That'll be between the Armory and the Canton Sports Complex. Obviously, we're standing by to see what happens with the governor's shutdown or potential shutdown and different things that he's going into. So we're concerned about that. The drug take back day was relatively successessful. We actually, our number was down, but we got 19 pounds of drugs that were recorded. Our trunk or treat event up at the middle school was well received as well. And our downtown Halloween event we did on the 30th and 31st with limited amounts of people down there. The election went well. No issues here in our town concerning the election. Statewide, there were no issues concerning the election. Some intelligence is paying attention to some of the things that are going on nationwide with some of the protests that seem to be forming. But right now, we don't have anything to indicate Connecticut is going to be affected in any way, which is good news. We've had a couple of decent arrests by our detective division. I want to give credit to Detective Theodore for an arrest that he made concerning a stabbing that we had back in August. We arrested an individual for assault first, robbery first, reckless endangerment, risk of injury, and larceny. The individual was out of Bantam. He was arrested on last Friday. Also, I want to give a shout out to Detective DeBlane, who solved a larceny complaint, or larceny investigation regarding cell tower batteries from the Burville Tower and the Big Lots Tower. The total battery stolen was $23,000. Through his investigative efforts, we were able to connect this individual to those 2 larcenies and burglaries, and he was subsequently charged. Also, other towns and cities throughout our state are interested in this individual, and because of Detective DeBlane's work, we're able to connect him to some other larcenies that happened throughout the state. Also, again, Detective DeBlane did a great job in making an arrest in the recent burglary larceny at Ruette and Sibley. where close to $7,000 worth of chainsaws were stolen. Individual was arrested, charged with burglary first, criminal trespass second, criminal mischief second, and larceny. That's all I got right now.
Any questions?
Chief Walton, thank you for that. I like hearing the report that you had about the drug take back day. And I'm assuming that you can't have any interaction with people who are doing any of those direct returns. I'm just thinking it from a marketing standpoint, how you can better message it to other people who might be interested in doing it or unaware of such a program that may want to give back what they don't, or what they have and don't need any longer from a medical standpoint or from even from a narcotic piece.
Yeah, the program has been in existence for several years now, so the messaging is out there. There are message spots on the local radio station, our Facebook pages, and the social media platforms. So the message is out there. Newspapers writing articles on the drug take back as well. It's been relatively successful. And again, at the onset, there were many more pounds of drugs and narcotics that were disposed of. But as the program continued on, there's less and less of that that seems to be available, only to the point of that there's so many different repositories that are out there at different police departments, different troops, different drug stores. There's more drop boxes for these things. So that brings our numbers down. And the other contributing factor this year was more than likely the COVID situation as well. But 19 pounds is, we got able to seize 19 pounds from our local area.
Thank you. And from any narcotics that get put into the bins, are you able to investigate that, tie that to anything that you've made arrests on?
No, the one thing about the drug take back program is it's completely anonymous. There's no investigative efforts that are associated with the drug take back. We are encouraging people to no questions asked. There are some restrictions as to what they can put in the drop boxes, but that's what makes the program successful. Is that we don't. There's no names. There's no. We don't identify who's dropping what. All we know is they drop it in the box. We collect it at the end, and it goes to the DEA. DEA then takes and disposes of it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for the chief?
The detective division obviously deserves a lot of kudos for some of these cases they've closed. One thing that kind of stuck with me about the cell tower, and also because I was living in the area where it was affected by that, this goes to kind of public safety, but what is the security around some of those cell phone towers? And the reason I ask that is when that power outage happened after the tropical storm, cell service in that area was gone within 3-4 hours. So if you need to call 911, if you were in trouble, my cell phone certainly wasn't dying out. I didn't have power, so my landline was down. Are these secured at all? And if you can't, I understand if you can't really talk about it, but it made me think, communications-wise and public safety, if someone's able to do that and we don't know about it, it just seems like a concern.
Yeah, so, I mean, these towers the buildings are as secure as they can be. Some have alarms. I don't believe any of ours have alarms on them, but they are alarmed, and they are some of them are alarmed, but they are pretty secure as far as the locks go. But again, if there's a will, there's a way, and people have a means to get into these buildings.
That seems like it happened in February. Is that when?
It's a problem nationwide.
Oh, and I understand. I just I put 2 and 2 together when I saw the article, and then realized that there was plenty of people around there who lost their cell service pretty quick, and just started thinking about the issues that could come with that.
Yeah, Chief, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, and some of the cell issues from the storm there were some power issues, but some of it also was the fiber optic and the backhaul from the towers into the system. They had some issues with that as well. Cell service has become more of more and more people are relying on cell service for their primary means of communication. The infrastructure, they secure the infrastructure. They're trying to working on hardening those sites and those backhauls to get the cell back into the system. There obviously still areas for improvement, and they are working to continue to work on hardening that. I know in that case we were able to get FirstNet to come in with a portable cow that was able to restore solely 911 service, not any regular routine service and stuff like that. But it wasn't ideal, and that still takes time.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Just one more thing I forgot to mention is on Friday, we have 2 officers graduating the New Britain Police Academy. So they'll be starting their FTO program upon graduation. So we're pretty excited to have them on board next week.
Are those the 2 officers that you previously mentioned that were in the process for a job, or?
No, they've been through the academy now for the last 5-6 months or so. So they've been.
Other questions for Chief Baldwin? Glenn, I keep forgetting to look at the screen. You okay? That's it. Okay. Anything from Trinity?
Yeah, actually would like to report that Trinity has actually purchased 8 new ambulances. So 2 of them arrived in Waterbury over the weekend. They still need to go through OEMS inspection, get antennas and things like that. But I think they're going to be finished fairly soon, and you're going to start seeing them out in the streets. They're going to be a different paint scheme than what you see right now, so it's an all new design, and I'm pretty happy about it. I think they're going to look pretty nice.
What kind of technology has changed from the old to the new?
Well, there's a lot of technology that's changed. You know, we also have modems in these vehicles and modems in our monitors, so we can transmit 12 lead EKGs to the hospital. And not just this hospital, for going to another hospital due to the fact that the patient is having a certain type of heart attack. They need a pretty advanced heads up about that to get their team in as early as they can and set up for that, you know, for a cardiac cath or things like that. So a lot of technology has changed. You know, the old switches that you used to have for all these lights, well, now they're just kind of like a computer screen that both runs the radios and the emergency lights, and you know, you can just do a lot of different things with the lights that you never used to be able to do. So they're pretty advanced.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jeff?
With the 8 new ambulances, are they just dispatched around different locations within the area, or?
Yeah, so obviously some of those ambulances will go to Waterbury. Probably one will go to Cheshire, which is where we're out of. But I imagine we are probably going to at least get at least 3, maybe 4 of those ambulances that are going to be dedicated to the city of Torrington. So so we're going to replace some of the older ambulances, and then obviously as we get older, we'll be able to start replacing them as well.
What do you do with the old ambulances?
You know, I know in the past years they've been donated to some, you know, third world countries. For them, it's like brand new equipment. I don't know what is going to happen with these, but I know in the past that's happened. I think we've also, in the past, Campion has donated some ambulances for, you know, the police department, and I think the fire department in the past for some of their specialty vehicles. But I don't know what's going to become of these.
All right, thank you.
Call for questions. All right, move to the next item. I consider a motion to consider business with the mayor and members of the board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll start with Glenn.
I don't have much to say other than I wanted to just add to what Chief Baldwin said. I saw the police up at Torrington School and down at the Armory most of the day yesterday, and they did a great job both places. And I would also commend the people of Torrington that really followed the rules the best they possibly could, and were very patient and did a great job as the city for voting yesterday, with longer lines than I think we've ever seen in the city of Torrington. So.
Thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Bean.
I too would like to echo Commissioner McLeod's statement about yesterday's interaction with all the forces and all the people in the town. I like to vote at 6 a.m. because there's never any lines, nobody's there, and I show up at the middle school and there's no line wrapped around the entire parking lot. It's really remarkable. And it speaks volume to how well our citizens kind of work together. And did it all as a group. Everybody, for the most part, was wearing their masks, social distance, and followed the rules. So there's no real any issues whatsoever from what I saw. I just wanted to thank everybody for being supportive of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McCullough,
I have nothing.
Commissioner Garantino.
Yes, a couple of things. Chief, can we go back to the hiring? We got guys leaving in January. We got 5 or 6 guys leaving. We have, I know for a fact, 2 lieutenants leaving.
Mhm.
Do we have an active list?
Not yet, no.
No, for the lieutenants list
No.
that's expired
Yeah, expires actually today, I believe, the 5th,
today,
or tomorrow, the 5th.
tomorrow. So are we gonna retest for those 2
Yeah.
positions?
Yes, sir. We're in the process of doing that. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, since 2015, we have lost 17 officers in our department.
Mhm.
9 officers to other departments. What's the plan to keep officers from coming in with no pension? I mean, how do you present new candidates, say, you know, we want you to stay in the city of Torrington? Because these guys we're training them and they're leaving. So what is our plan, or your plan as the chief?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, if I might.
Yeah.
Just clarification, 9 officers left for other departments?
17 officers left since 2015, 9 to other
Oh,
departments.
Since 2015. Yeah.
Not, I mean, you weren't here in 2015, so.
Well, the thing is this is not unique to this department. This is happening statewide and area-wide, so it's not just a Torrington issue. There are definitely, you know, the pension is a big part of it. Many municipalities have decided to opt out of pensions, so there are a lot of departments that don't have pensions, that have a pension system. There are many departments that do. So it's, but it seems like it's trending away from the pension system. There's talk that some departments may come back to a pension system, but again, it's not. It's really not the economic part of this. Of this factor rests with the Board of Finance, the City Council, and the city in and of itself. It doesn't rest with me. So
No, I'm not for any, I'm not
Yeah.
putting any blame.
no, I understand that.
It's across country, I believe,
Yeah.
and I see it. I'm just, how do we present to new candidates, hey, Torrington, what do we have to offer? So we don't have a pension anymore. Our salary is, what did we start at, 72,000, I believe? How do we retain them?
Yeah, again, that's an individual basis. I mean, there's no way of taking people and handcuffing them to their job, for lack of better terms. When we look at the overall, we're actually in contract negotiations now. When the personnel director looked at the overall salary ranges, our salaries are relatively comparable to other departments within the area or within our state. Obviously, there are some departments that pay lucratively better, and there are some departments that are that pay less than we do. So I think we're average from an average speaking perspective. I think we're in line. Obviously, I'd love to see my guys get more economically. I'd love to see them get have higher salaries. But again, it's what the city can afford, and the city does have other obligations to other municipal employees as well. It's not just the police department. As far as the department is concerned, I think for the most part, I don't hear any. You know, you're always going to have grumblings within an agency. You're not going to please everybody. But for the most part, I think the work environment is not a hostile environment by any means. There are some people within the department that are causing issues for others that can be make things difficult, where they don't want to be on board and try to help the matters. But for the most part, I think you know, I don't have the interactions that I have with my guys. They seem to be happy with the direction that we're going in. I mean, there's obviously other factors that are well beyond our control, especially when it talks to the accountability bill that was passed. There's a trend for you know, having officers. The qualified immunity issue is another issue. Now, these are things that are being thrown on all law enforcement agencies, from the state all the way down. So these are things that have to be dealt with legislatively, and the unions, the management, and the municipalities are attempting to work with the legislature to deal with some of those issues that was passed by the legislature. There's that, I talked to my other chiefs and the other colleagues, and we're all going through the same thing. We're not unique to any other department.
So when an officer leaves the city, do you give them an exit interview to find out why you're leaving? And what are some of these officers saying?
Some officers are leaving because they're just, they're going for a department that has, if they're leaving for another department, they're leaving for a pension, they're leaving for a quieter town, a smaller town. We're a busy department. We have a lot of things going on within this city. There's a lot, and some officers would prefer a less busy environment. And there are some of the bedroom towns, the smaller communities that do offer that. There are officers that have left, that have done their time and have gone to other departments because they've retired and they went out for a second job. It runs the gamut. I could tell you that the state police is having significant issues as well with retention and trying to keep people also. So again, it's not a Torrington issue. It's a law enforcement issue, blanket, statewide.
Is it, in your opinion, do you think it's a pension issue? Like, if we had a pension, do you think we'd retain any of these officers?
There's no saying. I think it would help. There are some officers who have pensions that are leaving. So it's not just those that don't have pensions. There's some that are leaving. But the point is that, look, any benefit that you offer people as an incentive to stay is going to hopefully keep people around. There are people that are leaving for the private sector. They've had enough of law enforcement. Again, some of it has to do with the accountability bill that was passed. There are people that are getting ready to leave. Others have left, and unfortunately, because of discipline, they left because they had to leave. So it's not. I don't think, again, in the overall scheme of things, I think the guys make a relatively decent salary. As you say, you question me all the time about the overtime. They're making good money with their overtime. I don't think it's really a salary issue to an extent, but they do have an ability to increase what they're currently making through the overtime.
The concern I have is that we spend about $100,000 to get an officer on the road.
I agree.
And, we got an officer going to Middlebury, I want to go to Simsbury.
Yep.
So it's.
I agree.
I don't want to be a training ground, and I don't think anybody on this board wants to.
No, but to that point, that there was an establishment of, if they leave within so many years of the municipality's investment in their training, that the other department would reimburse the training municipality. And I know that we did receive for at least one or two of those police officers. We do absolutely, yes.
It's prorated, Commissioner, for as
Yes.
Exactly. So.
So Lieutenant Tess you're in the process of testing right now.
We're
Posting it.
We will be posting it. I would anticipate either this week or next week.
Okay. And I just want to congratulate Representative Cook, Representative Case, and Representative Warren for the re-election. And hopefully they work hard for the city, which I'm sure they will. And good luck to them. That's it. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett, thank you for that. Chief Baldwin, thank you for your answers about that. It just seemed like the framework of a lot of your questions with the 9 officers who have left is predicated upon pensions as their reasoning for that. I appreciate Chief Baldwin's response to your question upon, was that the reason? Is there the interview piece of it? And if that's all predicated upon trying to reinstitute a pension here, that's a whole other piece that we have to discuss outside, in my personal opinion, outside of this meeting right here. If we're trying to get to the heart as to why an officer leaves the city of Torrington, it is having those conversations with those officers as they're departing, as they are going to new departments. With those 9 who went to new departments, do we know that the 9 departments that they went to have pensions in place? And then what's the benefit of that pension at the same time? That's another piece to it. It's the macro effect of things that we need to have the further discussion on, as opposed to having the questions just preemptively about pensions and the status of them. So I just wanted to make that point about that. So thank you, Chief Paul, Commissioner Benedetto, for the questions.
So,
Mayor, could I add something, please, for a second?
so Glenn, go ahead.
I get very aggravated when I hear overtime brought into the equation here. The reason officers are working overtime and making the money that they're making is because we need them to work overtime. If we didn't need them to work it, they wouldn't be working it. So good for them for making whatever they can possibly make. I just don't think that's part of the equation. When somebody says, well, they're making, $120,000, they're working the hours to make $120,000. And what do we do if they don't want to work those hours? So I really get aggravated when that really kind of comes into the equation, because we're asking them to do that. So it's almost like we feel like we're penalizing them and feel bad that they're working and making that kind of money. Well, they should be. They shouldn't be doing it for free.
Thank you, Commissioner McCollum. Other questions or comments on the pension discussion? I'll just add, we are in contract negotiations. Recruitment is a primary concern for the municipality, for Chief Baldwin, and for the departments. Even the union members themselves have expressed the concern. It's a lot of things. It's not just pension. It's not just salary. I think we live in very difficult times where young people are not choosing to go into this as a career. And we're competing with municipalities all over the state. We're also dealing with young people that don't go into the same career their fathers went into or their mothers went into. And they don't stay in one department for a protracted period of time or one career. They do change careers, they change departments. This is a concern. And while we certainly don't want to bring contract negotiations into it, this has been a protracted discussion during contract negotiations.
My only concern was the money that we spend, and
Yeah.
it's been going on for a long time, that we spent a lot,
And that's
hundreds and millions of dollars to train these guys, and then they're gone.
I don't disagree with you.
It's aggravating.
and if they go in, I think it's a 3-year period of time. If they leave within 3 years of our having invested in the training, we do get reimbursed, and we get reimbursed on the, a staggered schedule depending on how long they stay. And it's not just Torrington. We have also had a situation where we brought somebody in from another department and had to do the same thing. So it's supply and demand, to be honest with you, and that's the situation everybody finds themselves in.
And I just have one more thing. I just have to thank Chief for the speed trailer on 25th Street. My neighbors were very appreciative of it. Thank you.
Did they catch you speeding it?
Missed me. Unplugged it.
Commissioner Drexel.
Takes pictures of plates, right? Just quickly on what the discussion was there, we're talking about the cost of it. What's the pool of certified officers? Is that very small these days in terms of ones that are looking for another department?
There are not too many. We did have in our applicant situation, we have, and the other thing that we have to be very careful of is who are we getting into the department? The last thing this city or the agency needs is to have somebody else's problem. And there had been some that had applied from outside, from another agency to our department, and it didn't work out for one various reason or another. We received officer, one of our officers came up from New Haven. Now New Haven has a pension system, and he left New Haven and the pension system in New Haven to come here with the defined contribution. So there are, we recruit people that, look, when officers are leaving busy departments like Hartford, for example, they're not looking to come to our city where we are a hop-in department, where we're busy.
Right.
They're looking to go to a Choir, a Middlebury. They're looking to go to a Simsbury or something along that line where they're not as busy as we are. I am concerned about my guys because they are working, they're working an awful lot. They're being ordered in because of the vacancies that we have, and we're trying to address that. But as the mayor stated, I can give you an example. There's one premier department who who advertised for positions. Only about 24 people applied for this position. It's a well-paying department with a pension. Years ago, you would have had 425 people applying to that one agency. So the pool of people, the people that are interested to come into law enforcement as a field, has diminished greatly. Even I can go on with stories about how people have applied to the state police department, and the thousands and thousands of applicants they used to have to get into the state police to now are about a couple thousand to that. There's not that many people applying like they used to. It's not a profession that there's a lot of anti-law enforcement sentiment, and there's not a profession that a lot of people are attracted to as they have been in years past.
I understand, and that's why I wanted to ask a question, and I won't name the municipality, but in fact, I know of one that was looking to potentially hire from another department. I guess there was a disciplinary issue, and folks was deciding another officer. So I know there are going to be issues from when you're in another department, and I just wanted to ask, what the pool is. I figured it was very small. So next, I just want to talk about congratulations to the candidates, all those who ran. I know our community was going to do the right thing and have a peaceful elections process, but I do want to take the time to thank the police department. I noticed there was an officer at each location, and also some quieter market patrol, or maybe unmarked patrols going around. So I know our department was ready, which I think is very good backup plan, and thank you for that. And for the fire department, I forgot when during reports, but I think it's always nice to see a thank you. And I noticed in your package there was a thank you from the fire at Winston that I believe thanks to quick interaction by another chief nearby, but also I saw you guys were thanking. It's always nice to see that and deserve that commendation for all the confidence. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have, I'm going to defer my time with a report because we have a couple members from our Cultural Affairs Committee here. You see Tamara Williams and Gaza. And I know that you've come before council meetings and the boards in the past. So if you just wanted to take a minute to explain to the board what you're here for.
Yeah, we basically come here because we wanted to present Black Lives Matter mural, and we just felt like it would be nice if the committee would recognize such a thing, because we feel that the public it will bring attention to us and to discriminatory practices, and also allow this city to make a statement about such things not being done, so that this is a city we play on that is a very comfortable place to be in, to live in, and we want everybody to feel welcome in this city. So that's why we wanted to present that kind of mural. It's being done in other cities and other places throughout Connecticut. And so we wanted y'all to consider that. And one of the places that we were considering putting it would be the parking lot that's adjacent to this building. Just so folk would be able to see and say, yes, our culture is represented and diversity is represented. And we just wanted y'all to consider that. We had a mural. We have a sketch that we also would like to show you. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks for giving us the time to speak today. Like you guys said, we just want people in Torrington to feel welcome, that everyone here has a voice. I've lived in Torrington my whole life. My family is from here. And so our committee has decided that we think that that would be a great way for Torrington to join the growing list of communities in the state that are recognizing this movement. We chose the location next to City Hall. During our conversations with the mayor, she let us know that we couldn't use a road that would be, unsafe. And so that was the location that we chose, as it wouldn't interfere with traffic. And it would still be in a location downtown that would be visible to the residents of Torrington and the visitors of Torrington. So thank you for your consideration.
Just give, fill us in whereabouts right in the
So it would be in the center of the parking lot that's right next to City Hall. So it would just be about the center of the parking lot.
It'll be on the ground.
It would be on the ground, it would not interfere with any of the parking spaces or the lines. Our goal is to eventually have it filled in as sort of a mural by local artists. You know, each letter would have its own design, and it would be a community event. We would bring people to Torrington and represent the local artists that we have in town as well.
It would be something similar to the mural that used to be on the wall, which represented some diversity, and we just want that kind of to be a statement that we make as a community. Thank you for your time.
What type of paint would you use? Ask this sort of a serious question because I have a gate issue that causes me to limp. As a result of that, when paint is wet, even like the lines between parking spots, it causes them to get slick. And I have fallen numerous times as a result of that. So it could bring up a whole safety issue as to who's the liable host of that if somebody were to slip and fall while walking on the artwork.
Well, in the same sense that you walk over the lines that we have in the parking lot and those kind of things, we would have to work that out and understand what's safe and what's, you know, I understand what you're saying because as an old fella, I don't want to be slipping on nothing either. But just in terms of understanding what it is that they do to paint stuff on the ground that, you know, in the parking lot that keeps people from slipping, that's the same kind. We would work with artists and find out what's best.
So our goal is to utilize paints that would be appropriate for the surface that we're using. Obviously, painting on concrete, blacktop is different than painting on a canvas. So that was our goal, was to come to this committee as well, because we know that there are some guidelines with what paints and what things we can use, so that we would have your support as well. We would be working with whomever we needed to work with to make sure that it is as safe as possible and falls within the guidelines of safety for our community.
And you have a picture of this mural?
Do you have it in Gaza?
Yeah, I have, but I didn't print it out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So you want to paint something in our parking lot without us seeing it?
Sorry, we had emailed the,
We emailed it also to the group.
right, so we.
Could you email it to our city clerk's office and they can send it out?
Yeah, we already have done that.
Oh,
But
thank
we'll
you.
do it again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So when you said you selected this organization to do a mural for them, is that to say that you would select other organizations if another organization approached you to do something out there?
This is something that our organization has agreed upon. If someone were to bring another topic to our discussion, we'd be happy to hear it and happy to have those discussions as well. Our Cultural Affairs Committee, is about diversity in Torrington as a whole. So everyone is welcome, so every group should be represented. This is the matter that is on the table right now for our committee, but we are willing to accept any matter that falls under that category of diversity and inclusion in Torrington.
Can you define diversity and inclusion in your sense of that piece of it? Because when I think about like different groups as well, going on one side from the Black Lives Matter and then just going to the complete opposite from a perceived racial organization like the Ku Klux Klan, if they were to approach you and say, we want to do a mural out in the parking lot. I personally would be adamantly against that piece of it, but who's to say that they wouldn't approach you in a similar fashion?
Well, they'd be welcome to approach us in a similar fashion. Our committee votes on things that we feel are appropriate for Torrington, so it would go through a similar process, and I'm assuming we would have to bring it to this organization as well for approval on that. So it would not necessarily, they're welcome to bring it to our committee. Diversity to me is things that are the same but different at the same time, and when a group is underrepresented or not treated as equal for hundreds of years as the Black community in our country has been, we feel that this is just a small token of our understanding that we see you, we recognize you, and that you're welcome here. So that's the inclusion piece. Like I said, they'd be welcome to bring something to our committee, and we'd be happy to have those discussions on their behalf.
No, thank you for bringing hypotheticals out there. And going with that same side too is who would manage the maintenance of the mural, if that were to be out there? What happens if it's defaced? If anything along those lines, would your organization be a part of that?
Absolutely, just like we, when the mural on the wall was taken down, our group was very adamant about the restoration and the preserving that mural. I'm sure that our group would be just adamant about preserving the mural that we're fighting so hard to get.
Mayor, do we have a policy on public art, particularly on like a municipal building?
No, we don't. And I know that at the council meeting a few months ago, there was some discussion about advertisements and messages that would or could appear on public buildings, public spaces, because with technology evolving the way it is, some of that messaging and art could be in the form of a digital imposing on the building, and the council at the time agreed that this was more of a question of developing a policy before establishing what would be acceptable. So there's been discussion about policy, developing policy, but we haven't done it yet.
Going on the policy side as well, if they were to approach a public business that had a parking lot the size of a city hall parking lot and want to do something along those lines in a private parking lot, would they be allowed to do that?
I don't see why not, yeah.
Have you approached any businesses or personal property about doing something like that?
We're in the process of talking to, we have spoke to the guy that owns the building,
It's Vince Cavalletti, yeah.
Vince Cavalletti, about painting, doing a mural on a portion of his building, and he's in agreement with that. He just wants to see what it is that we want to put on there. It's gonna be about diversity. So yeah, and we're talking to other businesses about putting stuff up and around, because we are very interested in seeing diversity throughout the city.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for being so patient and coming for us. I think the only thing I wanted to end the meeting on is, as you all are aware, with the governor's, with the uptick in positive cases of COVID and the rising concern about going into that second surge that has been predicted, that second surge that is projected to peak the first week of December and then peak again, I think in February. Is that right? Yeah. So the governor's obviously taking action to protect the communities by rolling us back to what he calls phase 2.1. And some of those mandates include smaller group meetings inside. I know I'm doing the math here to say, yeah, we're probably maxed out on what we would be allowed to have an indoor setting, the outdoor settings, businesses closing. So at our next meeting, and until the governor changes his phasing or reopening plan, I'd like to recommend to the Board of Safety, the City Council, Board of Finance, that we consider our December meetings to go back to the Zoom meetings. At the very least, ask our staff and public to Zoom in, and for any more comfortable Zooming in as opposed to being here, just so that we can stick to what we're being advised. What they've learned, what the science has been showing us, and looking at the chief as I say this, is that it isn't even so much how many people are in the room. It can even be 2 people in a room with 15 minutes and 6 feet, and it's the aerosolization of our speech or our being in the same room that puts everybody at risk.
Yeah, they're saying 6 minutes for 15 minutes or more with or without a mask. 6 feet, 15 minutes with or without a mask. So.
Yeah. So for those reasons, come the December meeting, and we'll remind everybody, those of you that are more comfortable Zooming in, can Zoom in, but at the very least, I think that we should have our staff Zoom in so that we're not all in the same room like this.
I have a question. I've had a few people approach me about gatherings. who enforces that? Is the police enforce that, or the mayor? Do you enforce it from your office? There's been like the bar scene, say a bar scene, more than.
So it's a team approach that we've adopted. So if the complaint is directed to an establishment that is licensed or permitted through the Torrington Area Health District, they will do the enforcement. I do believe they had one establishment, they actually did shut them down.
Yeah, they have. So Torrington Area Health has been following up on complaints that they receive for any area health license, food establishment, or, any of the ones that have that public health licensing component. They've been very active in that, as they get complaints, they've been following up.
So the public should contact the health department if they have a complaint?
If it's a restaurant, a food establishment, a bar, something like that.
Right. So other complaints, and my office does get them, and I do follow up on them. We established, when we were in phase 3, established, the 3 strikes you out kind of approach to this. My first letter to the organization, the business, or a fitness club, was a gentle reminder, here are the guidelines for what you should be doing. This may have been just a momentary lapse of an employee, or, enforcing it with a customer. We really want you to be successful in reopening, kindly observe these rules. If we get a second complaint after that letter has gone out, the second letter, which I haven't had to do yet, but the second letter was intended to be more firm, saying, look, you already have 2 complaints. If we receive another complaint in this line, we'll have no alternative but to impose the fine. And my intention at that point would be to engage a police officer to visit the business. Now that we go back to phase 2.1, we've decided we're going with a 2-letter, 2 strikes you're out. That first letter is not quite as kind and gentle. It's not that gentle nudge. It's more, listen, this is what we have to do to be safe. We all want to open, especially with the holidays coming, and this is how we do it. So we have ramped up also our executive policy committee meetings. This was a discussion for the last 2 weeks and as to how we were to approach this enforcement. We have also asked our long-term recovery committee to do a few more teletown hall meetings with businesses to remind them that they have to be as much responsible about this as this office or Torrington Area Health or the Police Department.
Because with 2.1, they are increasing the restrictions, and then, on that with, restaurants, with closing curfews and, staying open for takeout, but trying to avoid that bar scene.
I find it interesting because I was speaking with Representative Cook about this matter. She was on the same phone call I was with the DCD and Commissioner of the Department of Health. And she was sharing with me that she has been receiving some complaints about the bar scene. And I'm thinking, well, if those complaints don't come to me, I can't enforce anything if I'm not advised. So certainly I would encourage, if you're getting those complaints or those concerns, I need to know. Otherwise, those letters, just don't happen. So. And with those outdoor gatherings, which now I understand are reduced to 50 people in an outdoor event. So first, what do we have? We have Christmas Village, I think so. We have our holiday events, so we're trying to plan all of those differently so that we can adhere to the 50 people limitation, adhere to the masks and the 6-foot distancing. But we certainly don't want to now offer those opportunities during the holidays. I think it's important. The public needs it.
And it's a good opportunity to still encourage the mask wearing, social distancing, because they are seeing that spread in those social gatherings, those family events where they're not within your household, those, neighborhood events, those community events that are bringing people from outside your own normal household is where they're starting to see that spread, which is, where the concern is, so.
And oddly, some athletic events.
Yes.
Hockey and soccer seem to be, and our PAL program, we just arranged with them, they came forward to the city to use the armory, we arranged with them to bring more safety protocol, how are you gonna do this, how do you make sure everybody's safe? They did a phenomenal job, I mean, it exceeded our expectations for designing how this would look. And then this new phase 2.1 came out, and while we're not at this point prepared to stop those things from happening, it is really important that those guidelines be adhered.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? If we can sort of follow those guidelines and keep those measures down, the goal is to stay out of the red, reverse things so we don't end up having to, you know, we don't get put in a position where they revert to more.
So with other towns
Restrictions.
canceling basketball programs and athletic, how do we come up with our idea to keep PAL and Torrington going?
So actually, in this executive policy committee, which again, I have to give credit where credit is due, under the whole incident command structure, Chief Talley established all of these various committees. So the superintendent of schools is on that committee with us. And what we are also using is the CAAC guidelines. And they're using guidelines that are being issued under the Department of Health.
Yeah, well, and Torrington Area Health's a big part of that. They've been a huge resource, and you know, we're relying on the guidance from the medical professionals as far as what is, you know, with the goal of, you know, there's a mental health and there's a, you know, there's an important to try to keep some normalcy within our community. So I think it's a good team that's in place. I think there's a good deliberative process to make sure that, you know, the mayor has the best information, and as we move forward, those decisions are based upon not just the science, but the science that's happening in Torrington. So we have area health being able to provide that local, you know, what's going on in the community, and, you know, where are our exposures and where can we, you know, what do we have to tighten down on, and where can we sort of feel comfortable with where we're at. So I'm confident that we're, you know, everything's in place that needs to be in place. It's just a matter of we're dealing with the virus that no one's dealt with before, and, you know, we're addressing it and taking action as, you know, in the best.
Nice. I'd love to see that PAL program go forward. Yeah. And as you know, I'm a basketball referee and across the Litchfield County area, they've been canceling, they just canceled prep school ball.
Are the public schools canceling?
Not yet.
No, I know.
Some have, and some had guidelines, they can't play past 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so I think the superintendent said CAAC was supposed to do something.
It's supposed to be this week. Yeah, I think within the next week or two, you're going to see more guidance on winter sports and what that's going to look like. You know,
These kids need something.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. Absolutely.
And we wish it could be outside, but it's going to snow.
Put it outside, they can play.
Give it in the snow, give it shovel first, right? So, I see no further business before the board, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, and I have